Just ahead on American Black Journal, Detroit's Wayne State University is undergoing a lot of change and growth. I'll talk with the university's president about the historic gift from the Ilitch family and the new program that's providing opportunities for low-income students. Plus, we'll conclude our series on Detroit neighborhoods with a look at the Warrendale community. Stay right there. American Black Journal starts right now.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. Wayne State University made headlines recently when it received the largest single donation in its history. The Ilitch family gave the university $40 million to build a state-of-the-art business school. The building will be located near the new Red Wings Arena in the area now known as the District Detroit. The university is also involved in other exciting initiatives, including a program that will offer free medical education for 10 low-income students each year. Recently, I sat down with Wayne State President Dr. M. Roy Wilson to talk about the changes and the growth at the university. Welcome to American Black Journal, Dr. Wilson.
Well, thank you, Stephen. This is my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So let's talk about the recent big news about the Ilitch gift to the university to build a new business school. Big dollars, big name, yes. Big program change for you guys.
Yes. Well, this was one of the things that I wanted to do from early on when I first got here, was to locate the business school closer to downtown.
Okay.
And just be more integrated with the business community. That was one of the complaints I heard from the business community, was that we were a bit isolated. And quite frankly, there are business schools throughout the country that are doing the same thing. They're locating downtown, away from the campus and closing.
Central business districts.
That's right, yes. So this is not a unique kind of move at all. And certainly the Ilitches understood that vision, understood what it could do for not only the area between downtown and Midtown, but for all of Detroit, and was enthusiastic in supporting us in this. So we're very, very pleased.
Yeah, and it's not just a physical move or change. There's some programmatic changes that are going to go along.
That's right. You know, most of the news have been about the physical,
the building.
Plant. Yeah, right.
Brick and mortar.
Yes,
right?
and which is going to be great. You know, great location and everything. But there are going to also be some great opportunities on a curricular level. You know, the Ilitches own a lot of entertainment and retail businesses, and to be able to be right in the center of what's going on with respect to sports and entertainment,
yeah.
and build a curriculum around that, I think is also very, very exciting.
Yeah, yeah. That brings the university closer to downtown, but also deeper into an area of Midtown that is still sort of a no man's land between sort of Midtown proper, where the university is, and downtown. Is that the first real step that you guys have made into that area?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I think it will help to transform that area. You know, basically what the Ilitches are doing is just, there's no other word for it, it's transformational. And I think the business school being located down there with 3,000 young kids, well, I shouldn't say kids, they're students, but they're young adults.
Right.
3,000 young adults being down there all the time, you know, on a continual basis. You know, they're going to be demanding certain services and entertainment and so forth. And so it's going to be not only all the things that the Ilitch is doing, but having the business school strategically located there, there's going to be a synergy about it that's going to be transformational.
Right, and would you expect then to see other university investments in that sort of gap area?
Well, yes, because you know we actually have, it's little known because we don't use it right now, but we actually have a building, a very large building, about 3 blocks away.
Okay.
And it's I think it's called the Kresge building for some reason. But there are a lot of opportunities for that building, and we'll take ownership of it. Right now it's being, there's a complicated business arrangement, so we're not using it right now. But we'll be taking ownership of it in about 2021 is what I recall. It might be a little bit earlier.
Okay.
And so there'll be some opportunity to do something with that building also.
Yeah. In general, the university is right at the nexus of the sort of development and change in Midtown. Talk about how that is changing the university and how you see the university playing a role in helping change the neighborhood generally.
Well, we feel that it is part of our role to try to do what we can to improve the neighborhood. And it's not totally altruistic. We gain some benefit from that.
Sure.
For example, students want to live in Midtown now.
Yes.
And that helps the university. In fact, for the first time since I've been there, but I think first time in a long time, the university housing was completely booked with a waiting list. We had to put students into 2 floors of the St. Regis over in, what is it, Newtown?
Over in Mid-Center, or New Center.
Yeah, New Center, right. Our concern is, they're getting kind of used to that room service and having a maid come in.
And so does that mean you need more dorm space?
Yes, we do need more student housing, and over the next several years, you'll see some developments in that regard.
Yeah.
Part of it is, as we were just saying, that whole area is just so much more attractive that students want to live in that area. Part of it also is that it's becoming attractive for non-students also, and so it's becoming harder for students to get some
Rents
of the housing.
Are going up,
That's right.
sure.
Rents are going up. They're getting priced out of some of the neighboring apartments that they were using previously for student housing.
Yeah. I also want to talk to you some about a new program that you guys announced called Med Direct, which is about access for low-income students to med school. Tell me how that program works.
We're very excited about this program. What it really does is it takes really top-performing kids from high school that who have low socioeconomic characteristics, as mentioned, and we admit them simultaneously to the undergraduate school and the med school.
And to the med school.
And to the med school, simultaneously. Full room and board and tuition for the undergraduate education, 4 years of full room and board plus the tuition, and then full tuition for the medical school portion. I mean, it's a $250,000, $300,000 deal right there.
Sure.
So we're going to be taking the absolute best students. And it's not just the fact that, there are a lot of benefits to it. One, we do expect that it'll help diversify our class and have a ready pipeline. But also, from my own experience as undergraduate pre-med student, a lot of your experience in undergraduate school is anxiety-provoking because you're always competing with other students about trying to get into med school and trying to take even harder and harder science classes to differentiate yourself. If you can just really sit back a little bit, know you're in med school already, and use that time in more productive ways than worrying about whether you're going to get into med school.
Absolutely.
Take the classes that really you're interested in and that could make you a more well-rounded person, and subsequently, I think, a better physician. Literature and philosophy and appreciation of art and music, these are all things
and if you take some of that pressure off, you feel like
that's exactly
the students
right.
feel like they're more able to do it.
Yeah, so I think though, as medical students and as ultimately as physicians, that they'll be more well-rounded, they'll be more humanistic, and there would be just a lot of benefits all around.
Yeah. Wayne, of course, has a stellar medical school and a very strong relationship between that medical school and the Detroit Medical Center. I would think that a program like this also sort of dovetails nicely with that sort of rooted in the community feel of the med school. I mean, it is really a big part of life in Detroit.
Yes, I would agree, and that's why it's really important that we focus on lower socioeconomic kids. And the second part of that are kids who are interested in health disparities. And so even when they're undergraduates, we'll be teaching them the skills and the knowledge related to combating health disparities in the community.
Right.
And so that by the time they're in med school, they already have some skills, they already have some knowledge and the interest in continuing that kind of work.
Yeah.
Hopefully after medical school, they'll be able to enter into some sort of discipline that will help to eradicate health disparities in this population.
Well, and hopefully stay here in Southeast Michigan
That's right.
and deal with those things.
Well, that's the plan.
You are still relatively new to our community and to the university. I always wanted to ask you just how you're finding the adjustment, how you're finding the university. Are there things that you feel you've learned since the time you've been here that are helping to shape what you want to do with Wayne State?
Well, there really has been no adjustment. I mean, I came in on day one, and I feel like, I feel like I'm home.
Time, right?
Yeah, I feel like I'm home. This is where I belong. I really believe that. I think that this is where I could make an impact. And from an adjustment standpoint, there really has not been one. I feel very, very comfortable being in Detroit, and this will be my home for the rest of my career and perhaps the rest of my life. That's how much I love Detroit. Yeah. And on other fronts, I think that Detroit has just been a very welcoming community. I've gotten very involved with a lot of organizations, both downtown and Midtown, and throughout the state. And it's just been a very welcoming community. I think that it's a great privilege to be able to see Detroit undergoing the revitalization that it's undergoing, and also to know that the institution that you're leading is a great part of that revitalization.
Right.
It's very, very satisfying.
I mean, really, just right in the middle of so much that's going on.
As a career, you can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah. I want to talk some about the recent events at the University of Missouri, where African American students and their supporters really challenged the president there over his response to racist incidents. It got to the point where the football players there said they were not going to play unless the president stepped down and things changed. Obviously, Wayne State's a very different campus than the University of Missouri, but I would imagine that someone in your position takes note of that, compares the two situations, and maybe draws some lessons from how it's all handled.
Let me respond to that in two ways. First, on a personal level. My belief is that these kind of incidents that occurred at University of Missouri happens more than we might think.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
It's happened to me as a student, and so much so that I wanted to get out of my school. And there's a whole nother story, and we don't have enough time for that, but I really did, and I didn't know where to go.
I think you can't talk to an African American who went to higher ed who didn't have that kind of
I didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
And so I think, first of all, that whenever it's something like that, any racial issues negatively happen on any campus, that it's incumbent upon the administration to take those issues very seriously and address them very aggressively. Yeah. So that's a general statement that I would make. In terms of Wayne State, we are a different kind of institution. One of the things that I really love about being at Wayne State is that it's such a diverse institution.
It's an incredibly diverse place. Sure.
I mean, I can spend time with Muslim students one evening, break bread with them, and then the next morning be with Jewish students and feel just as comfortable. Right. And the students themselves feel just as comfortable interacting with each other. Sure. So it's not even, it's certainly, race is a big part of it, but also just ethnicity. There's just a diversity in so many different ways, socioeconomically, age-wise. And that's one of the beauties of Wayne State, is that we do have that kind of diversity, and so hopefully that was
one of the challenges at the University of Missouri. I mean, that's not a terribly diverse campus. I think they're still struggling with how to increase that diversity, but then also create that air of tolerance and acceptance that I feel like Wayne State is sort of ahead of them and many other places in terms of creating that.
Well, like I said, it is just one of the things that I really enjoy very much is the diversity, and I think it makes for a much better learning environment for the students, to be able to learn in an environment where it is diverse, because that's the way the world is. It's a diverse world now. And to be in that kind of environment and to deal with issues of differences in culture and in beliefs and in religions and urban versus rural, to really have to deal with those issues during undergraduate years, I think better prepares you for the workforce.
Yeah. Do you ever hear a pushback to that idea of more diversity, of more acceptance? I mean, what we're seeing in the University of Missouri now is sort of a backlash a little bit toward what happened, and people saying, well, why do we have to talk about these things?
Well, I think that it's well known, not only in education, but in the business world, that the more diversity you have, the better the decision making is going to be, the better the final outcome of discussions, broader perspectives, and all around. And to be crass about it from a business perspective, higher profits from better decisions.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think the value of diversity has been proven over and over again, and so I don't think there's any debate about that. And so if there is any pushback about it, then it's certainly not something that I'm seeing at all.
Yeah.
I think that people at Wayne State understand that that's one of our strengths, and diversity is embraced.
Yeah, and it's something to build on.
Yes.
All right, Roy Wilson, president of Wayne State University. Thank you for being here on American Black Journal.
I enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Coming up next on American Black Journal, we'll continue our special series on Detroit neighborhoods with a look at one of the city's most diverse communities. But first, here's a look at some important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Ken Coleman with a look back at African American life in Detroit. This week in 1974, jazz guitarist Kenny Burrell opened an engagement at Watts Club Mozambique. In 1982, recording superstar Prince brought his 1999 tour to Masonic Temple for 6 shows over 4 days. And also in 1982, Moses Anderson was appointed bishop by the Archdiocese of Detroit. These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African American Life in Detroit.
As part of Detroit Public Television's ongoing coverage of Detroit after bankruptcy, American Black Journal is airing stories on 3 historic neighborhoods. Today, we conclude the series with a report on a West Side neighborhood that prides itself on being a very diverse and united community. Here's a look at the area known as Warrendale.
To a very large degree, neighborhoods in Detroit all have their own unique flavor to them. Part of Warrendale's charm has almost been that we're the place that nobody knows about.
So, geez, I'm drawing a blank really on it. I mean, as an East Sider, this is the far West Side. So, curious thing is, why are certain areas on the map and other areas aren't?
It's an area that is separated, isolated in a lot of ways from the rest of Detroit. People who know Detroit well often will find that there are places within the city limits that they just don't go to. And I think that's true of Warrendale for a lot of people.
My name is Frank Nemechek. I was born and raised in the area. I'm a past president of the Warrendale Community Organization. And since 2005, I've published the Warrendale Detroit blog, which covers the neighborhood. Warrendale absolutely has its own very distinct personality to it. It had, in its earlier days back in the 40s and 50s, a very strong mix of Italian and Polish immigrants to it. In recent years, you've seen a lot of spillover migration from Arabs moving in from Dearborn, Latinos moving in from Southwest Detroit, Blacks moving in from Brightmoor to the north.
I grew up in Southwest Detroit, started the business 24 years ago, out of my house, catering. It's all my grandmother's recipes. I looked for a building probably about 15 years ago, and I wanted to always come back to Detroit, so the Warrendale community was probably the perfect location for me to start.
We were talking about late 70s, early 80s. One, you could walk down the street, feel completely safe at all times. Because of the ethnic mix of the place, I mean, you usually hear 2 or 3 different languages being spoken.
It's diverse, very diverse. It's a very united community. Unfortunately, it did go through its really hard times. Used to have a lot of police officers live in the area.
Once upon a time, anybody who worked for the city of Detroit had to live within the city limits. And a lot of police officers and firefighters lived in this area. And that led to it being called Copper Canyon. Then of course the law changed where they were no longer required to live within the city limits. And that in turn led to most of them leaving in a relatively short period of time. It was a little bit of a setback because obviously when you have a whole bunch of police officers in an area, that in and of itself is a natural deterrent to crime. Warrendale, because we're surrounded on the three sides by suburbs with a freeway going right through the middle of it, has always been a convenient spot for city-based drug dealers to do business with suburban customers. And so in many ways it's almost made it like the Walmart of narcotics. And then of course there was also the housing crisis, the mortgage crisis that just completely decimated the area. We went from, I think it was like 90 some odd vacant homes out of more than 9,000 to 6 months later having more than 800. That's kind of resulted in almost a rock bottom effect there. And then in recent years, I mean, we've actually, past year or two, we've really seen some very real and very tangible things that have started to happen in the area.
After being here 12 years, I had to leave for things out of my control. My son graduated from Eastern about 5 years ago, and we knew he wanted his own location, so we knew he wanted to go back to the city of Detroit. And fortunately, at the time we were looking to open our second location, this was available to us, and we were able to come back, and we've been back here for a little over 3 years. We are part of the Warrendale Community Association, and we also participate in a lot of the community events, the schools, the cleanup. So, you know, it's not just a business for us, it's our neighborhood also. Social media is very important. You have to be, you know, involved.
One of the reasons why I started the blog back in 2005 is because there was a lot of stuff happening in the area that unfortunately the mainstream media was just completely not covering at all. And so I wanted to give voice to that. Rouge Park is the largest park in Detroit. If I remember correctly, it's almost twice the size of Belle Isle. There's, you know, a few other very old buildings inside of the park that have been there forever. Brennan Pools is an historical side note, was actually built for the Olympic tryouts back in the 1920s. The Detroit Police Department used to have a horse barn that they had for their mountain division inside of Rouge Park. Well, during Kwame Kilpatrick's tenure, the department closed that, and that led to a group of volunteers who came on in who just took it over. They're keeping it up. They have their own horses there. So, you know, my blog, we try to bring people together to kind of, you know, use social media to bring people together to solve problems. We've used it to raise funds for different community efforts throughout the years. We're bringing volunteers in some of the neighborhood cleanups. And also bringing people together for, like, you know, even the simple things like the monthly pizza party that I do. Gracie C Pizza, which has been in the neighborhood since the 1960s, advertises on my blog, and they actually pay me in pizza, which is at times better than cash. Gracie's has always been one of those neighborhood gathering places. There's sometimes called the third space. It's not quite public, it's not quite private, but it's that great place where people just come together to gather, to talk, to catch up on one another's lives, and it builds up some kind of really like a neighborhood bond between people.
Maybe in the case of Warrendale, it's a project whose time has come. I guess in some ways, this sort of a project can be a way in which a neighborhood mobilizes, a neighborhood comes together.
I think Warrendale was really hit during the economy, and I think they just need a little extra push or more believe in them. You know, a lot of businesses did leave, a lot of residents left. What's so unique about it, we have the colleges in the area, we have Ford Motors across the street, and then you have the community, which is very diverse. And I just believe that it's going to come back, you know, and I think believing in it and being one of the first ones to come back to the city shows that it's kind of start the path to come back for Warrendale. There's
one particular house about 6 blocks away from here that I once thought could never really be saved. It was fire damaged and neglected. You could stand on the sidewalk and see daylight at the other end. But there was one particular couple who bought the place a couple of years ago for obscenely cheap through the city's land bank authority. They poured a not inconsiderable amount of money into it, and now you have a really large family just living there. I mean, I stop and talk to them from time to time on some of my walks through the neighborhood. And I guess that could serve as a metaphor for the neighborhood. I mean, there are some things about it that you might look at and you think, oh my God, there's no hope for the area. but yet you have these instances where hope seems to come from hopeless situations.
We want to thank the funders who helped make this Detroit Neighborhood Series possible. They are the Michigan Humanities Council and Renaissance Journalism. Also, a special thanks to our content partners in the Detroit Journalism Cooperative. That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org. And as always, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. Plus, you can also hear our program on WDET 1019 FM. We'll see you next time.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.